Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fan, you know what's interesting? Everyone keeps talking about where this team could finish this season, but I think they're skipping over the conversations that will actually determine it. There's growing pressure in one part of the offense, a defining year ahead for one of Minnesota's young stars, a defender demanding real attention, and a rookie facing a much tougher road than most fans realize. For all the excitement surrounding this team, there's one conversation that simply refuses to disappear. Every time analysts break down Minnesota's chances in 2026, they eventually land on the exact same concern. It isn't the quarterback. It isn't the coaching staff. It isn't even the defense after all the offseason changes. It's the backfield. That alone tells you just how much pressure is sitting on Kevin O'Connell's shoulders heading into this season. We all know O'Connell has talked about building a more balanced offense, one that doesn't force the passing game to carry the team every single Sunday. Bringing Frank Smith into the coaching staff wasn't an accident either. The Vikings clearly want to become more physical, more efficient on the ground, and far less predictable. But then you look at the personnel, and that optimism immediately gets tested. Pro Football Focus recently ranked Aaron Jones as only the 29th starting running back in the league. And while rankings don't win football games, they do reflect what many people around the NFL are thinking. Jones is still respected because when he's healthy, he's incredibly smart, versatile, and dangerous as both a runner and receiver. We've seen flashes of the player who tormented defenses for years in Green Bay. The concern has become his availability. Last season, he battled through nagging injuries almost every week, and although he showed toughness by staying on the field whenever possible, asking him to carry an offense for 17 games remains a risky proposition. That's where Jordan Mason enters the conversation. There's genuine excitement about how he fits into a wide zone running scheme, and physically, he has traits that could make him an ideal complement, or perhaps even the future lead back. But projecting someone into that role is completely different from watching him prove it against elite NFL defenses week after week. Vikings fans remember what it felt like watching Adrian Peterson dominate games almost by himself. Then came Dalvin Cook, whose explosiveness gave this offense another identity for several years. Comparing anyone to those players isn't fair, but it does highlight how different this running back room feels today. Instead of proven dominance, there's cautious optimism. The front office understood that reality during the draft as well. Rather than reaching for a running back in a class they didn't love, they stayed patient, believing next offseason could offer far better opportunities if they decide to invest heavily at the position. Financially, that approach also made sense after missing out on bigger veteran names around the league. Still, patience only works if the current group produces enough to support the passing game. Kevin O'Connell has earned plenty of trust because of what he's accomplished as a play caller, but even the best offensive minds need a reliable ground attack. Maybe Aaron Jones has one more outstanding season left. Maybe Jordan Mason becomes the alpha this offense has been searching for. Or maybe the backfield becomes the weakness standing between the Vikings and legitimate contention. Training camp might finally begin answering those questions, because every single carry will tell us a little more about whether this offense is truly ready to change. Another storyline has quietly become one of the biggest questions hanging over this organization, and it has nothing to do with whether the talent is there. We already know the ability exists. The problem is that talent alone doesn't earn a second contract in today's NFL, especially when you're sharing the spotlight with the best wide receiver on the planet. That's exactly why all eyes continue drifting back toward Jordan Addison. His journey since arriving in Minnesota has been anything but predictable. Most fans expected a steady climb after an electric rookie campaign, imagining that each season would bring another step toward becoming one of the league's elite complementary receivers alongside Justin Jefferson. Instead, the path has been much bumpier than anyone anticipated. The suspension to begin last season immediately put him behind the rest of the offense. Then came the bizarre situation overseas that landed him on the bench for the opening quarter in London. Those moments didn't define his season by themselves, but they certainly didn't help a player already trying to prove he could be trusted both on and off the field. What makes this conversation even more frustrating is that Addison remains one of the cleanest route runners you'll find anywhere in the NFL. When he gets separation, he makes difficult catches look effortless, and there are still stretches where he reminds everyone why Minnesota spent a first-round pick on him. But numbers matter in this league, especially when contracts start reaching $30 million per season. His production has declined each year since entering the NFL. Some of that is understandable because his rookie season featured several games where he essentially became the #1 receiver while Justin Jefferson recovered from injury. That naturally inflated expectations. Even so, watching the catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns trend downward isn't the kind of trajectory front offices want to see when extension talks begin approaching. The quarterback situation certainly played a role, and very few receivers would have completely overcome the offensive inconsistency Minnesota dealt with last season. Still, Addison now has to show that he can separate himself from those difficult circumstances. The Vikings already exercised his fifth-year option, meaning they control his contract through 2027, but that doesn't automatically guarantee a long-term future. If improved quarterback play finally unlocks this passing game again, Addison has every opportunity to break through the 1,000-yard barrier for the first time in his career. That would completely change the conversation surrounding his value. If the inconsistency continues, the front office will have to confront a difficult question. Can you commit enormous money to a very good number 2 receiver while already paying Justin Jefferson premium dollars? Teams like Cincinnati have managed to invest heavily in 2-star receivers, but that's still the exception across the NFL rather than the rule. Rob Brzezinski has built a reputation for managing the salary cap creatively, yet even the best cap managers eventually run into financial limits. This season isn't simply about Addison proving he belongs among the league's better young receivers. It's about convincing the Vikings that he's worth building around for years to come despite the questions that have followed him. Personally, I still believe Jordan Addison can become one of the most dangerous WR2s in football if everything comes together. But belief eventually has to meet production. With training camp right around the corner, there may not be a more important personal season on this roster than the one that's about to begin for number 3. Not every player who becomes essential to a football team arrives with first-round hype or years of NFL experience behind him. Sometimes the biggest surprises are the ones almost nobody sees coming, and that's exactly why one name keeps generating more buzz every time people inside the organization talk about this defensive front. While most of the attention has been focused on the splashier offseason moves, another player has quietly earned the respect of Brian Flores. That player is Jalen Redmond, and if you've been paying close attention over the last couple of seasons, this shouldn't come as a surprise. His path to this point has been anything but conventional. Before wearing purple and gold, Redmond rebuilt his career in the XFL with the Arlington Renegades, proving he still belonged in professional football after his NFL opportunities dried up. The Vikings took a chance on him without much fanfare, and very few people expected him to become more than a depth piece. Flores apparently saw something different almost immediately. It wasn't just the physical tools, it was the energy, the effort, and the way Redmond attacked every opportunity like someone who understood exactly how quickly this league can move on from you. During his first season in Minnesota, he flashed enough potential to earn more responsibility. Then last year, everything accelerated. He finished with 62 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, multiple pass breakups, and 2 fumble recoveries while starting 15 games. Those aren't empty numbers either. They reflect someone who consistently influenced games against both the run and the pass. Alec Lewis of The Athletic recently identified Redmond as Minnesota's breakout candidate for 2026, and it's easy to understand why. Defensive linemen who can anchor against the run while still creating pressure up the middle don't grow on trees. Every defensive coordinator dreams about interior defenders who can collapse the pocket without sacrificing physicality on early downs, and Redmond is beginning to look like exactly that type of player. What's even more remarkable is the value the Vikings are getting. He's currently playing on an exclusive rights tender worth just over $1 million, making him one of the biggest bargains on the entire roster. Of course, that could change quickly. If Redmond delivers another productive campaign, Minnesota will have some important decisions waiting after the season. Fortunately, the restricted free agent rules give the Vikings significant control over his future without immediately forcing them into an expensive long-term extension. But beyond contracts and salary cap conversations, every championship-caliber defense needs players who outperform expectations. Stars matter, but discoveries like Redmond often separate very good teams from legitimate contenders. With veterans gone and new responsibilities opening up across the defensive front, the opportunity is sitting right in front of him. Can he prove that last season wasn't the peak, but only the beginning? If he does, Brian Flores may have found a cornerstone for a defense that's quietly starting to build an identity all its own. There's something fascinating about the way Brian Flores builds a defense, and if you've watched this team closely over the last few years, you already know one thing. Rookies don't automatically earn anything. It doesn't matter where they were drafted or how impressive they looked in college. Flores has always believed that playing time is something you fight for, not something that's handed to you. And that philosophy is about to put one of Minnesota's most intriguing young players under a very bright spotlight. Caleb Banks arrived with plenty of excitement after the Vikings used a first-round pick on the talented defensive lineman, filling what many fans considered one of the biggest needs on the roster. On paper, the opportunity seems obvious. The departures of Jadeveon Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen created significant vacancies along the defensive front, and many people naturally assume Banks will slide right into the starting lineup. But inside the building, things rarely work that simply. ESPN's Kevin Seifert recently pointed out just how reluctant Flores has been to rely on rookie defenders. During his entire tenure with the Vikings, only one rookie has immediately earned a starting role, Ivan Pace Jr., and he wasn't even drafted. That statistic tells you everything about the standard young players are expected to meet before seeing major snaps. Still, there's a reason optimism surrounding Banks continues to grow. Internally, the organization reportedly believes he has everything necessary to win a starting defensive end job, assuming his recovery from the broken foot he suffered during the NFL Combine is fully behind him. Nobody questions the physical talent. The concern is whether he'll be completely healthy by the time training camp battles intensify. If he is, the coaching staff may have little choice but to use him in meaningful action much sooner than Flores typically prefers. Minnesota simply needs fresh impact players along the defensive line. The same excitement extends to third-round nose tackle Domonique Orange, who is expected to compete with Levi Drake Rodriguez for playing time in the middle. Beyond those two, the road becomes much steeper for the rest of the rookie class. Jake Golday at linebacker, Jacoby Thomas at safety, and Charles Demings in the secondary all face an uphill battle against established veterans who already understand Flores' complex defensive system. Unless injuries create unexpected opportunities, earning significant snaps won't come easily. Another possibility could make that competition even more difficult. Veteran edge rusher Jadeveon Clowney continues to be mentioned as a potential fit for Minnesota. Alec Lewis recently noted how productive Clowney remained despite joining Dallas late last season, finishing near the top of the team in quarterback pressures while playing on an affordable one-year contract. Financially, a move like that makes plenty of sense for the Vikings, especially after losing Jonathan Greenard and searching for additional depth behind Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel. The question is whether Clowney would embrace a rotational role instead of expecting to be an every-down starter. If both sides found common ground, it could create an even deeper and more dangerous pass rush while placing additional pressure on every rookie trying to climb the depth chart. That's what makes this upcoming training camp so compelling. It's about discovering which young players are truly ready to earn Brian Flores' trust when every mistake can cost them an opportunity. Around here, reputation only gets you through the front door. Everything else has to be earned on the practice field, and that's exactly where the future of this defense will begin taking shape. No matter how these individual stories unfold, they all point toward the same reality. The Vikings aren't simply preparing for another season. They're trying to define the next chapter of this franchise. The running game needs answers. Jordan Addison is chasing the biggest year of his career. Jalen Redmond is trying to prove he's more than a feel-good story, and a talented rookie class is about to discover how demanding life under Brian Flores can be. That's why this training camp carries so much importance. Every practice, every roster battle, and every snap could shape what this team becomes when the games finally count. I'd love to hear which storyline you're watching most closely because, like always, Vikings Nation sees these moments long before the rest of the league does. Thanks for spending part of your day with me, and until next time, keep believing, keep defending the North, and as always, stay tuned. Skol Vikings, let's go.